So check it out, folks. Here it is. I promise you at all times I'm hunting human excellence. No matter where I find it, I want to bring it to you. And today, get your pens and paper ready. But take that and rewind it back because we're going to go to class and it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm with, and by the way, she's been on shows with Ed Milet. She's been on shows with Brad Lee and many other folks. Met her through a good friend of mine, Randy Garn, coach, mentor. I'm with Dr. Taryn Marie. How you doing,
Hello,
Dr.?
sir. How are you today?
Blessed and highly favored. Thanks for being on the show. I can't believe it. I'm pinching myself. I might even jump back and kiss myself. That's how excited I am right now.
Really?
Yes, like this.
I love
James
that.
Brown style.
I love that. I want to kiss myself too.
Go ahead. There it is. Match a mirror.
We're feeling so good.
Let's go.
I love it.
Let's get into why you are who you are and where it all started.
Okay.
Which I think is an amazing journey. They got to get your book. You know, the title of the book is
The 5 Practices of Highly Resilient
People. 5 practices of highly resilient people, folks. 5 practices of highly resilient people. And you can check her out on TED Talks as well.
Thank you so much.
Let's get into where you're from.
Sure.
Early years.
So I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Yep.
You might hear some Michigan accent as we go along here.
She's in New Jersey right now, everybody.
That's right.
She is in New Jersey.
Yeah.
At the Profit Center right here in Red Bank.
Indeed. First time to Red Bank.
Really?
Yes.
Did you like it?
I did.
There's some nice spots right there on Main Street.
It's
So
really
check
nice.
it out.
Right on the water.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's awesome. Mm-hmm. So tell us about Michigan.
Michigan is cold.
Yeah.
It's real cold. And so I grew up in Ann Arbor, which is where the University of Michigan is.
Wow.
And
College town.
College town.
Yeah.
Which I did not appreciate growing
Even
up.
as a young, like coming up, it was okay.
I couldn't wait to get out of there.
Just too many people, or just some of the things that take place, or like was it a
Yeah.
combination?
It was more so. So what's interesting is in my high school, I've never heard of this before. There is an unprecedented, in my mind, number of people from my high school that have not only stayed in Ann Arbor, because it's a beautiful place, it's a wonderful place. The college is incredible. There's great restaurants, it's safe. And there's an unprecedented number of people that have stayed in Ann Arbor, and also like many of my high school classmates have married each other,
Got it.
started families, but for whatever reason, nothing really with Ann Arbor. More so like just growing up, I was excited to see the world.
Got it.
I was excited to see beyond
Yep.
what was available to me. And I remember, so one thing that I did growing up is I've always been a maker of lists. And so why did I make
How'd that
lists?
start?
I think I just didn't want to forget anything.
Okay, cool.
And so this was a way that I could not, as long as I wrote it down, it would be there. So even if I couldn't retrieve it in my mind, if I couldn't remember, I could remember because I wrote it down in a journal.
Amazing.
And so I remember writing down just every time I would hear about an interesting place to visit, I would write it down. I wanted to go to Cambodia, and I wanted to go to Cuba, and I wanted to go to London. I wanted to see the Tower Bridge. I wanted to swim with the whale sharks in Costa Rica, which I still haven't done, by the way. And
Costa
I really
Rica.
Costa Rica,
Yeah.
which I really want to do. So that's like still on my list. I wanted to see the pyramids in Egypt. So I think I was just excited about getting out, right?
That sounds really,
Yeah.
that last part.
Yeah, the pyramids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Let's
don't know
go.
about the whales.
You don't know about the whale
I'm
sharks?
not sure. I'm not comfortable in the water like that. But it's not about me. It's about you. So thank you for sharing.
Sure.
But you're brilliant, right? You're well studied. You have an education that's, worldly. Let me ask you this, because as I got older, I grew up in Bayonne, New Jersey. The last thing I thought is I would escape Bayonne. So opposite of you, never made a list. But as I got older and as I began to, be around peak performance coaches and peak performance mindset, they would talk about making a list and then reading it out loud to get it in your nervous system. But you seem to naturally know that.
I naturally knew that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ann Arbor, how many people go to college? Is it about 100,000, 70,000? Like what's the number?
What's the population in
in the
Ann
school.
Arbor,
For the school.
or the school?
Yeah.
The University of Michigan.
Yeah.
Probably about. Is it 100,000? Is it 40,000? I'm not sure how many students we have at the University of Michigan.
And the town itself, is there like a marriage there? Is it just all Michigan? That's it? Like is the whole thing, is that what it's all about for, 12 months out of the year?
I would say there's a beautiful sort of synergy that has existed. The school's been there since the 1800s. There's a beautiful kind of synergy that exists between the people that live in Ann Arbor and the students.
Got it.
And over the summer, so I'm not sure if this is still true, But it used to be that Ann Arbor had the most restaurants per capita out of any other city in the United States. Why? Because the population of Ann Arbor is about 100,000 people.
Got it.
And the joke is in the big house, right, the football stadium
Yep.
on Saturdays in the fall, there are more people in that stadium, like 106,000 people, than actually live,
In the town.
town of Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
So there's a
That's
really
an amazing stat.
yeah. So the vast majority of people too in Ann Arbor, like they're affiliated with the university in some way. They're professors.
Somebody knows somebody that works there. Somebody knows somebody that they
Yep.
met each other. Everything you were talking about before about
Yeah.
high school sweethearts and the
Yep.
whole 9 yards. Do you go back a lot?
I don't.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've been back.
Now,
Yeah.
I've never been to the big house.
Okay.
Love going to sporting events. I'm actually a big basketball fan. But in Michigan, made it to quite a few Final Fours, some finals. Actually won a championship. I think it was against Seton Hall in 1990. I don't know if you remember that in basketball.
Michigan won this championship?
Yep.
I do not remember this.
Not the Fab Five. They lost to
Okay.
Duke.
Okay.
No,
All right.
I'm sorry, 1988.
Okay. This
That's
is only
what-
because I wasn't born yet.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Just kidding.
Oh. So that was good.
Thank you.
So, growing up in Ann Arbor, where did you go to college?
The University of Michigan.
So you stayed there.
I did.
So let me freeze it.
But I
Hold on.
didn't want to.
But you did.
But I did.
And did you like it at all or no?
I loved it.
Okay, great.
I loved it. So what I really wanted is I wanted to get into Brown.
Okay.
And I don't know why Brown. I loved the idea, I think, of Rhode Island
It is beautiful.
and New England
Yeah.
and Ivy League. I loved all of that.
Mike knows all that.
Yes, Mike
Yeah.
knows all that.
He's
Boston
all-
Mike knows all of that.
Boston Mike. Boston Mike is in the house, everybody.
Boston Mike's in the house.
I'm lucky that Boston Mike's here. I'll tell you that right now.
I
I'm
feel the
feeling good
same
about
way.
it.
I feel
I
lucky
know
too.
you do.
Yeah.
I know you do.
Yeah.
God bless.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So, yeah, Boston Mike made an appearance on the Ed Milet podcast as well.
Did he really?
We did. We talked about Boston Mike, Ed and I. And so Ed
See, I
and
didn't even know. Can I just talk about me for a second?
Let's talk about you.
I just want to talk about me right now.
Yes.
Like, I had no idea that even happened, but just the fact that I could bring Boston Mike right into my living room right here is just, I'm like Ed Milet,
Isn't
Junior.
that, you are.
Just like the junior version.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're
Like,
all,
his dad was sober, I'm sober.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're all sort of junior versions of Ed Milet,
Yes.
I think, because he's just,
He's
next level.
he's
on
like Tom Brady,
Yeah.
right? In our
Yeah,
space. Or
absolutely.
Tony Robbins,
Absolutely.
Ed Milet, me and you.
Absolutely. Yes. And you know
And
what?
Randy.
Yes. And Randy Garn. You know what I will say about Ed, and I think this is really important, is I was really nervous to meet him, not because of who he is,
Okay.
but when we go to meet someone that we deeply idolize, someone that I
Yeah.
idolize, think
Yeah.
the world of, it's like, I just don't want to be let down. I don't want him to be different than who I hope he would be.
I understand.
And being in studio with him,
Yeah.
he was the most classy,
Yeah.
intelligent, thoughtful, energized.
Yeah.
He'd done his homework. He had all these amazing questions. And so it was one of those moments, and I think we get to sort of lift each other up in this space of being thought leaders and
Yeah.
people that are influential in the world, to say it is really beautiful to meet people, whatever their craft is, who are actually living the brand that they put out into the world.
Well said. Well said. That's amazing to hear the life condition and the blueprint matched, right? The expectation and the reality matched. That's awesome. And, listen, reading his book and watching his stuff, he's amazing. And as I understand the Boston Mike, he is from Boston, right? He grew up there. So he has that East Coast, vibe as well. And he was big in the insurance space at one point, and that's
Yes.
where he kind of had his massive success on where he was able to translate his message to the world. So it's incredible. It's incredible you were on the show.
Thank you.
One
Thank
of-
you. It was a huge honor.
Yeah, one of my other coaches, David Meltzer, is connected with Ed Milet as well as Randy. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I think back for you, high school was what it was, challenges.
Of course,
And I think that ties into the book and some of the other stuff that
it does.
if you want to talk about, I'd love to
Sure.
pass that on to you. For anyone that's paying attention right now, take a pause, get a pen and piece of paper because it's about to get real. And I'm sure on some level it's happened to you. So I'd love for Dr. Taryn to get into that.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So my work, resilience, There's a subset of people, and I'm going to get to the story in just a moment. There's a subset of people that hear the word resilience, and they're like, oh man, not this again. Like, are we really still talking about, like, can we just not talk about resilience anymore? And like, I see you. And so if I meet our listeners who might be thinking that today when they hear the word resilience, and if I meet our listeners where they are.
I like that.
Thank you. I would share with our listeners that resilience isn't actually the thing that's causing us to feel exhausted or uncertain or confused about life.
Got it.
It is the large scale amount of challenge, change, and complexity, or the 3 C's, that has been infused in our life. And for the vast majority of us, we are experiencing more of the 3 C's than we have seen in our lifetimes.
Why is that? When you say for the why is that?
Sure.
The speed of technology or just, okay.
It's a great question. So I would say it's a number of things.
Okay.
The sort of top 3 that I would hit upon, one, it's expectation. And so when we have an expectation that life is going to be a certain way, and then life is a different way, that is really challenging to our human minds.
Yeah.
And so I think what we told ourselves a couple of years ago is that we were going to come out of the pandemic and life was going to go back to the way it was.
Amazing.
And
It's
so
not.
so that was our expectation.
Yep.
First, it was going to be 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right?
It was.
We
too.
remember that.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember telling people that. I was like, yeah, it's only 2 weeks. Don't worry about it.
Right.
Don't worry about it. It's
It'll be
okay.
fine.
2 weeks.
Yeah. So it was the longest 2 weeks.
It's still going on.
Known to man. And so there was a divergence between our expectation of what we thought was going to happen, first in terms of how long that was going to be,
Yeah.
and then how things were going to be on the other side of that. So that's one.
Yeah.
We thought things were going to go back to normal. Things have decidedly not gone back to normal, right? And in many ways, we were changed in really meaningful and beautiful and important ways. We were stretched, we were tested, right? And all of that is really important. And it's also really exhausting.
Yeah.
So one is expectation. 2,
Well said.
thank you. There's a thing that psychologists are going to call cognitive load, right? Cognitive load. It's like how much is going on in our heads, kind of behind the scenes, and what are we processing through and thinking about and afraid of and worrying about and planning for. So that's like the kind of all of the energy that we're using inside of our mind. So number 2 is this cognitive load that we're carrying. And so we're walking around wondering about our economy, our local economy, our national economy, our global economy.
Well said, Doc.
Thank you.
For real.
We're worried about what's happening with Ukraine and Russia.
That's right.
We're worried about what's happening on the Gaza Strip.
That's right.
Between Palestinians and Israelis.
No
Many
question.
of us have dear friends and family members that are missing, can't be found, are out fighting on the front lines. Like, that's tremendous cognitive load.
Yep.
We're seeing more and more shootings in our schools and bowling alleys and movie theaters, so the world is feeling more and more unsafe.
And it's closer to the house now. It's closer. You see it more now in ways we've never seen it before.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. It's not
So it's in our
those people over
brain.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like come to our sort of front doorstep.
Yep.
And so before we ever sit down at our computer and answer an email
Yep.
or have a conversation with someone or sit down with our family for dinner, all of this programming
Yep.
and what's happening in our world is running in the background. So that's the second reason.
Cognitive load.
Cognitive load.
Love it.
Yeah. And then the third thing is, so we've got expectation.
Yep.
We've got cognitive load.
Yep.
And then the third thing is, you mentioned technology. Yeah. So technology is great when it works for us. But we've got an unprecedented amount of information
Yeah.
constantly coming at us. And if we don't manage that information, meaning like if we're just scrolling through TikTok, like whatever comes up, like Boston Mike and I were talking last night and he was on TikTok.
Do you call him Boston Mike at home?
I don't.
Okay,
I
please
don't.
do.
What's you
Just
want?
start
You want me to
calling
start?
Boston Mike.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
I just want to have some kind of impact today. The guy from New Jersey, Boston Mike.
Perfect.
I would love that.
I just want to make sure his externally facing brand is, consistent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
I love it.
exactly.
You gotta get into his nervous system.
Right.
He's got to start writing it down and saying it out loud in different tonalities.
Putting it on a list.
Yes,
As we do.
100%.
Yeah. So Boston Mike was scrolling through TikTok, and I kind of heard like, ah, and then I heard like, ah, right? And I was like, what just happened? And he's like, there was this cute little sheep.
I said the video you sent me. I swear to God, I saw that video. It's the craziest thing.
And then he's like, this Komodo dragon just came out of nowhere and
God.
ate the sheep.
Dude, let me tell you, I see it on Facebook all the time. It's the saddest thing.
Right?
They poisoned I don't know if they poisoned him or if the Komodo dragon just, it's immobilized, but it's still standing there, with a little bit of a limp, and the dragon just comes and eats it alive.
Yeah.
It's the craziest thing.
Yeah.
I'm not excited about it.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah. Actually,
And it's like a morbid curiosity because it keeps coming up. I'm sure you're gonna have fun with this as a psychologist, but I'm just saying, it's the craziest thing.
yeah. Well, Komodo dragons. So something you don't know about me yet, Rob, but we're about to peel back another layer.
Let's
here.
go.
And the vast majority of people that
The
are
poor goats, though.
I know, right?
There was a monkey that got took too. It was the craziest thing.
It's the worst. Yeah. But circle of life, right?
We gotta get Godzilla on a Komodo dragon now. That's why.
So I know a lot of things about animals and the natural world.
Komodo dragons and goats are not in the same place. I think this is man-made, unless I'm wrong.
Well, so Komodo dragons really in the wild only live on one island or a couple of islands off the coast of Japan.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you're not gonna if you're running around Red Bank or you're in Kentucky, you're not gonna run into a Komodo dragon.
Yet.
Thank good. Yet.
Yet.
Unless it escapes from the zoo.
Yeah, unless somebody has one in their basement and escapes.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So the really interesting thing about Komodo dragons, I don't know what's going on in these TikTok videos, but
They keep getting goats.
what they do is they attack an animal and
Poison it.
they'll bite it, and
Yep.
their bite is poison, and then the poison is going to matriculate through the animal's circulatory system,
Bloodstream,
through their bloodstream, and they'll become weaker and weaker, and until the Komodo dragon is just going to follow that animal
For
until
3 days.
Yes, until it gets into such a weakened state,
Yeah.
and then it goes for it.
It's the saddest thing I've ever seen
Yeah,
in my
so
life.
probably what we're seeing on TikTok is the
But
the
there's
last-
a dude filming it.
I know. No,
I don't like- it's
yeah,
crazy.
Yeah. So
But
anyway,
I do watch it, though.
You do.
Tell
right?
me, can you help me through that?
Help you about why you're watching
Not watching it.
Oh, not watching it.
I don't need to see it anymore. But when I
Right.
see it, it's like, oh my God.
Yeah. Well, see, and that's the point. So we've got expectation, we've got cognitive load.
She's good. But Mike, do you deal with this every day? Just these kind of conversations? This is insane.
I know. And then
In a good way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. You're like, this is crazy. Crazy awesome, I mean. Yeah. So
Expectation, cognitive load, and technology.
and technology. And so what happens with technology is when we scroll through Instagram or TikTok or whatever, we don't necessarily know what we're going to see next. And so
But it knows.
yeah,
TikTok knows.
Yeah, the algorithm knows,
Yeah.
right? So it doesn't feel good to see a cute little cuddly animal be attacked but and slaughtered. And so
Alive.
our alive. And so our mind is not prepared to take this in. We haven't braced ourselves. We're not ready
You're
for
right.
it. We didn't choose it.
And when we were little, you and I and Boston Mike, of course, we didn't see that on TV. When we were coming up, at least when I was coming up in the 70s and 80s, I saw Happy Days,
Sure.
the Fonz,
Yeah. Yeah. So
not Komodo dragons.
that's right. Actually, I've got a story. I've got a story for you about that. And so we've got all this information coming at us, and I think what we're seeing, especially in the media, and I'm not making an evaluative
Sure.
judgment about this.
Understood.
But the media is showing us more gore, more blood, more dead bodies.
Because it sells.
Right? And so this is all getting entered into our psyche, and we're constantly bombarded with these images.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we get addicted to them on some level, right? Or at least, whether we're addicted or not, the fact is they just keep feeding us the information.
Yeah.
And the question is, how does somebody that's watching us right now protect
Right.
themselves from that? They got to be aware of it first.
Yeah. Yeah. Simply, I think because of my mental health background, I'm careful about the word addiction.
See, I'm a recovering alcoholic.
Right. So
Since 1996, so
congratulations.
thank you. Thank
That's
you.
amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
One day at a time.
I love that. So I think this word, what you and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
You know what a journey it is.
Yes.
To face addiction.
There's two sides. There's self-imposed, and then there's freedom, right? And that's right, and that's what it is.
And so for me to say that someone's quote unquote addicted to
You're right.
TikTok or Instagram, like that's a very different journey than what you went through. So addiction, as you know, and I'll just say for our listeners, means to be physiologically reliant on something, right? Like our body craves it, it needs it, we can't go without it, and then there's that portion of detox. So are we addicted to social media? Like, I don't know. It's probably like on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
But what I think has
We're
happened...
distracted.
We're distracted.
No doubt.
We're for sure distracted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a bigger game plan behind that, though? Why is it... My question is, who's controlling the levers? Who's controlling the masses? Not conspiratorial, just like who's controlling the masses and how is it impacting them, whoever they are?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the questions of our day. That's one of the questions of our time. And just to add on to that, it's really interesting because it used to be when you and I were kids, although I wasn't born until 1990. I'm just kidding.
I know.
And
95, I thought.
That's right. 2003, really. So there was, CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox
PBS.
came, PBS, right?
MTV eventually came.
MTV eventually came. Yeah, and then VH1. And it's a brief history of television for anyone who wants to be here.
Yep.
And so you turn on the TV. So we were mostly watching the same stuff on TV.
Yeah.
You go to school and say like, oh, did you see, whatever show last night, Happy Days, Dukes of Hazzard, and you'd commiserate on having a shared experience.
Shared experience. Yep.
Now with social media knows, what my political stance is, what I like to see, what I'm interested in. My phone has been listening to me. So
Crazy.
I open it up and it's showing me things that I'm already interested in. So, you and I are living on the same planet.
Yep.
We're living within a, couple of miles of each other.
Yep.
And yet we can have a dramatically different experience and believe incredibly different things about the world because we're each having our own curated experience of whatever social media is showing us.
Yeah. Incredible, Bob. Thank you for saying that. And I'm sitting here because I know some of the story, and I'm thinking about how we just talked about how the phone's listening to us, or like maybe that Mondo pad is watching us. And knowing you had an experience in high school where somebody was watching, how does that factor in for you?
How does it factor in?
The control of the forces that hear us and watch us and give us what they think that we want to see and feel.
It's a great question. So for people that haven't read my book or seen my TED Talk, there's a story in high school where, essentially I was getting dressed for school one morning and my bedroom was on the ground floor. So my window was open just like a crack. It was October. It was this time of year. We're recording in November. And so I'd gotten dressed for school. It was dark, kind of early in the morning, 6 a.m. In Ann Arbor, Michigan. And so I went over, here's another blast from the past. I went over to turn off my stereo because I was listening to music. So for anyone who doesn't know what a stereo is, see us after.
Yes.
Yes.
We'll send you pictures.
Yes. We'll talk to you about...
I'm not sure if there's any videos on stereos anymore. We'll try and find a picture for you.
We'll tell you about all kinds of
Record
obsolete
player.
devices.
A record player.
Yes. VHS.
Yes.
Butter churn.
Betamax. We were around for Betamax? You might not have been there. That was Betamax.
That's right.
70s.
So I turn off my stereo, and then I see this face at the bottom of my window.
Now, was the window shut?
It was open.
Just enough, okay.
Just a couple of inches, and the shades were down the rest of the way.
So you just see like a glimpse of a face.
Yeah, it was like the face was pressed so close to the window that it was kind of like, from the bridge of the nose down. And, I could, see those features. And so I'm looking at this face and I'm trying to figure out in my 14-year-old mind, I'm a freshman in high school, what in the world is going on?
Yeah.
So I cycle through all these, kind of memories as we do, like
These are
quickly.
quick thoughts, right?
Yeah,
Bang,
you're
bang,
like
bang.
you're trying to make sense of like what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And so
Did it feel wrong?
I think I hadn't let myself go there yet.
Got it.
I hadn't let myself go there yet. I was still hopeful. This is like how I also view my life today. Just sort of a side note, right? I think it's really easy to catastrophize things. To see a situation or to take a piece of information
Conflate.
or conflate,
Yep.
And think like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this is a catastrophe.
Yeah.
And so I think it was Walt Whitman who said, I have experienced a great number of tragedies in my life. Very few of them happened. So in our minds, we can be in the midst of tragedy and it might never actually come to fruition.
Wow. I love that.
Thank you. So in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm not ready to go to like tragedy yet.
Yeah.
Let me see if there's, some other kind of explanation for what's happening. And so what I landed on in my memory bank was that at one point my dad had been outside and he was like playing a trick on my brother and I and like jumped out of a bush or something, so I was like, maybe Dad's outside playing a trick on me. So I said, Dad? And he said, take off your clothes. You're beautiful.
Oh.
And I was like, not
That's not
Dad.
Dad.
And then
Yeah.
I was like, tragedy,
Got
bong,
it.
bong, bong. Like all the alarm bells are going
No.
off.
Yeah.
And I run from my room and I'm screaming for my parents. And they had heard some footsteps. Like they were upstairs. They like opened a window or looked out the window and they had heard, someone running down the stairs, crunchy fall leaves kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we call the police and the police are taking the police report. And, basically they say, okay, it's a pretty safe neighborhood. There's probably nothing to worry about here. Probably just a fluke. Someone passing through. Okay, great.
Did you feel that way too at that point? Like, were you like, how were you in that post, like let's say 5 hours, 5 days, 5 weeks later?
So I continue to kind of stay with that, okay, this doesn't need to be a tragedy
Okay.
until we have evidence that there's like a catastrophe here. So, okay, so this was not a good experience.
Yep.
But, okay, it's a fluke, happened one time, person's gone, not coming back.
Yep.
Great, I can get on board with that.
Yep.
And so that was sort of the next 5 hours, probably the next 5 days, 5 weeks. The bus stop in the morning was dark in the morning, and so I asked a friend of mine to come and meet me at my house and walk with me to the bus stop because I didn't want to walk in the dark
Yeah, I wouldn't have.
by myself.
Yeah.
And then 5 months, I did have moments where I got scared. And I think I even had a dream where I was sleeping and I heard a sound and I woke up and I was like looking around my bedroom. And then I turned to my window. I had 2 windows in my bedroom and the screen was torn out.
Can we pause for a second? I want to ask a question because our spidey senses tell us things. I don't want to tell anyone what you're going to tell the end part, so I'll let you tell that. But on some level, knowing what we later found out, could you have been feeling that the guy was always watching?
I could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like really, but it was true. Like your nervous system was giving you an alarm.
Yeah, like an intuition.
Yeah. Thank you. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Because, and I just put this together as we were talking actually.
Wow.
So, isn't that great?
Yeah.
I know, it feels so good.
That's what we do.
That's what we do. Create insight.
Let's go.
Let's go.
They can't stop us. We're like waves in the ocean. We
That's
just keep,
right. Just keep going.
Just keep coming.
I
They get
love it.
bigger, they get smaller, they just keep coming.
That's right. We're not going anywhere.
Hell no.
Hell no.
Let's go.
We won't go. So, so 8 months go by. This is October. Now we're in June of the following year. I always kept that window on the driveway shut tight,
Yep.
Blinds down. And then summer rolls around. It's June. It's like a hot Midwestern summer. And so I had the other window in my room open with the screen, for ventilation. And so I'd been out shopping with my girlfriends that day. I got some new clothes, and so I'm trying on the clothes. And then as soon as I take off the clothes, I hear his voice again.
No. Wow. Different window.
Different window. The one in the back of the house, that you
And it
can't-
was still like closed, like same thing, or was it open a little bit?
It was open all the way.
Okay.
Open all the way.
But that was
the
the
way
safe
open.
window.
That was a safe window because it was like back of the house. You can't see it from the street.
And then you're taking a risk if you're going to go in the back of the house and look through a window.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like that's a whole nother level
Yeah.
of,
Understood.
of a person that you're dealing with who's going to be tromping around.
Who in your mind was passing by 8 months before that?
I was going to convince myself that this was a fluke,
Yeah.
like the nice police officer said.
Yeah.
So I hear his voice. That's the first time I notice that he's there because it's dark outside and he's standing outside the window.
Dark. Okay, that makes it even worse. Yep.
Yeah, and he says, "I've been waiting a long time for this."
Yeah.
Yeah, and so in that moment, my life totally changed
Yeah.
at age 15, and so if I just sort of pause here again,
Yeah.
so we all have resilient stories. We
Yep.
all have stories of facing difficulty, the 3 C's, challenge, change, and complexity. We all have these stories. And for many of us, there's sort of like a clear delineation of how life changed, right? Like life before the car accident and
Yep.
after, before
Understood.
a significant loss. It's just like a
Yep.
line gets drawn in the sand of life, and it's like things are probably not going to be the same.
Yep.
And that's not for everyone. Like sometimes there's a gradual change over time or like a coming around to like what's changing and what's different. For me, this was like an immediate like, okay, now things have really changed.
Yeah.
Because then in that moment.
It's undeniable for you. Like, there's no more fake confusion. We use the word fake. There's no more fake confusion.
Right. Yeah. It's like
It's real.
I'm naked.
And we can't ignore it.
We can't ignore it.
Yeah.
I mean, we can, but I didn't.
Yeah.
I'm naked in front of a man for the first time. So that's a thing at 15. My childhood bedroom, which should have been a safe,
Innocence. Yep.
right, place for me, is no longer a safe place, right? So that innocence lost,
Yep.
lost to your point. And then the third thing is, this isn't a fluke. This guy is like watching me.
He means business.
He means business.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, I started calling for help. And we had babysitters staying with us. My parents were out of town.
Oh. Did he know that?
Well,
Did you later find did he?
we don't know.
Okay, got it.
We don't know if he knew that.
Okay.
But we do believe that he lived close enough to be able to keep an eye on the house
And know when
and to
he
know
can
the
and can't.
cars and the coming and going.
The pattern. Yep.
So I start calling for our babysitters, just as I had called for my parents the first time. But our babysitters had 2 young children of their own. They were like a young couple staying with my brother and I. And they're upstairs. And they can't hear me.
Oh.
And so I'm calling for them, and he says, they can't hear you. No one is coming to help you.
Oh.
And so I think for all of us too, if I just like sort of back into like another, so this is my unique story, but if I back into a universal moment,
Yeah.
right? We've all had experiences where someone says something to us,
Right.
something happens, and we make a judgment about that, or we develop a belief. And that for me has been, a 2-3 decade exploration of when I need help, when I'm backed into a corner, literally or figuratively. Are people going to come and help, or am I going to need to do it all by myself? And for a long time, he said, no one can hear you. No one, no one's going to come and help
Felt
you.
alone.
He was right.
Yeah.
Nobody came, Now, fortunately, this is in the age before cell phones, I had my own phone line in my bedroom. I had my own telephone. And so I picked up the phone and called 911 myself.
Thank God the phone line wasn't cut.
Right.
Like that movie. There's a movie.
There's so many movies. There's so many movies. Yeah, like Scream or something, you know?
Or the babysitter.
Yeah.
Something.
Yeah,
You're
so
not
creepy.
alone or something.
It's
Yeah.
so creepy.
Yeah.
You know, and so, but I've had a really difficult time relying on other people,
Yeah. I don't blame you.
you know, and for a long time, I was in a place where I was like, I just want this guy to stop being right.
Yeah.
Because there were so many times where I felt like I was backed against a corner, I was in a difficult place, and I just felt like no one would show up to help.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Because we know about state, story, and the words we use to tie to our emotion. Tony Robbins, right? And what we tell ourselves is true, no matter what it is. Did you begin to manifest that? Not him. That no one's coming to help.
I don't
in
think
other
so.
areas.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think that I manifested it. However, I think I had a real propensity to see a moment where I needed help and to not feel like people around me were doing enough or coming to my aid. And so that lens was so powerful for me.
And you were let down because of that.
Yes.
Got it. Understood. Because it was a powerful lens versus a denial lens.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I understand. Thank
yeah.
you. Wow.
Yeah.
So what happened?
So what happened?
With him into then your recovery.
So if we just sort of fast forward through this story, you know, he comes to the house multiple times. His
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he comes back more, and his behavior.
Every time, was it a way where he knew that he could come?
I don't know what he knew,
Okay.
but coincidentally, every time he came, I was home by myself.
That's what, yeah, he knew. Of course he knew.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can't definitively say what he
Yeah, you
knew
don't. Yeah,
because
there
I've
was
never
no written
asked him.
proof. Yeah.
Right. But I can say, you know, here's what
Here's the
happened.
facts.
Yeah. And then I was babysitting at a house in the neighborhood where we'd been playing, you know, at the park in our neighborhood, and he tried to come to that house. He tried to break into that house too when I was babysitting for
Tried to
those
break
kids.
in, like to the front door. Wow.
Yeah. And so, you know,
I'm so sorry you went through that.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, and this is like another sort of, you know, step off to the side moment, right? And so on the one hand, you know, do I want to have like gone through that? Answer, no.
Yeah.
Right? But then if you were to say to me, Taryn, tell me about what you would change about your life.
Well, I was going to say that. Let's go back to the 14-year-old that knows what you now know. How would you have handled that?
Yeah. Well, what I would tell you today is that I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah.
I wouldn't remove this experience from my life. Do I want to do it again? I don't, right? But I'm so, and this goes back to kind of the practices of resilience. I can see how this challenge has formed me. I can see the good in it, even though I wouldn't have chosen it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I'm convinced of, I believe that our greatest healing occurs when not only we learn to understand and integrate our resilience stories, our stories of challenge and difficulty, but that we also then speak those resilient stories into existence. We find a way to share those stories with other people.
Amazing.
And what happens in that moment is the most powerful thing that we can do as humans relative to healing and wholeness, because we become an alchemist. We take the darkest things that happen to us and we transmute them to become a light that we shine on people's paths that are in that moment of challenge that are coming up behind us.
Take that and rewind it back. That was some incredible stuff. Take that and rewind it back. Stop, rewind, listen, and write it out. Please keep going. That's amazing.
Thank you. And so
Did that just come right off the top of your head?
it's a core belief that I've found, you know, in my journey, in my work, you know, in thinking about how do we effectively face challenge? How do we take the hard, you know, are hard things always hard things, or can it change? You know, all of us have trauma. in our lives. We
Yes.
don't have to have been on the battlefield or have been in some kind of bad car accident to have experienced trauma.
Yep.
And so this idea of like there's so many people who feel broken, who feel unworthy, who feel less than, who feel like they're not enough, that they're tainted in some way by whatever has happened to them. And it's like, okay, is that a belief about ourselves? Is that hard thing? Are those hard things that happened, are they always going to be hard? Or is there a way to like shave off the sharp edges, make that a different shape, integrate that into our lives in some way? And what I've learned is that by really doing our work and understanding what's happened and then effectively getting to share our stories
That's the
like
key.
we are today,
Yep.
there's at least one person who's listening who's saying,
That's right.
oh,
Boom, light bulb moment.
yeah,
In your book, though, do you talk about how to, what you just said, you give steps on how to kind of deal with that. Mm-hmm. So the book, and how could they get the book? Just so we're understanding, how could everybody get your book?
yeah, so you can just go to Amazon or wherever you get your books,
Yeah.
and you can type in the 5 practices of highly resilient people, and it'll come right up.
Is there like coaching programs you do and other things?
Yes.
If you could talk a little bit about that, because
Sure.
what you just said was amazing.
Thank
and
you.
That's like high level.
Thank you.
So I'm sure people may want to learn more about it. So what would that look like?
Thank you. So to work with me, and we've got the book out there, we've got a lot of free resources. We also have an online course called Flourish, which is all about embedding the 5 practices in your life. Because the thing is, challenge isn't going away,
Nope.
right? It's the fabric of what
Nope.
it means to be human.
And an entrepreneur.
And an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
For sure an entrepreneur.
No doubt.
That's like breakfast of champions.
Yes.
Like, okay, what are we doing today?
And how do we cause it?
Yeah.
How do
yeah.
we cause the craziness that's about to come?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And that's
At least
different
for
than
me.
I thought,
Yeah.
you know? Exactly. So that's what it means to be human is the fabric of facing challenge. And so then when we get to think about, okay, if challenge isn't going away, wouldn't it be great to know how to deal with that challenge?
Yeah.
When this inevitably shows up in my life, in whatever form it shows up,
Yeah.
Loss, disappointment, rejection, financial concerns, insecurity,
Yep.
all of those things, personal insecurity, financial insecurity, whatever it is,
Yep.
right? And you help people
Yep.
work through those really key moments. It's like, okay, if I know better how to effectively address challenge, because I've interviewed hundreds of people
Amazing.
and collected thousands of pieces of data, which led to the 5 practices. So then we've got a roadmap.
That's the case.
Yeah.
Some kind of course, right? Roadmap, a place to go.
Yeah.
When this happens, do this. Ask this question, do that.
Yeah. So we've got an online course which will teach you how to do that. We've also have a group coaching program, individual coaching program.
Are you an individual coach, or did you train individual coach? You
I
are?
am.
Amazing.
Yep.
And how many people do you privately coach, if you don't mind me asking?
Probably about 20 a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it like 3 months, 6 months? What does it look like?
I like to work with people no less than 6 months.
Okay.
And ideally 12 months.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, when we think about what it means to make change in
Yep.
our lives, different people have asked me, this is funny, Rob, you'll appreciate this. I was at a dinner not too long ago, and someone said to me, they turned to me, they were having this conversation about making change and changing habits, and they turned to me and they said, isn't it true that it takes 30 days to change a habit?
That's a leading question.
Right? And I was like, I don't know. And they're like,
Because everybody says that.
right? And they were like, well, isn't your background in neuropsychology? And I was like, it is. But I think it just depends on what's the thing you're changing and what's your mental fortitude. Like, if you want to do something different, you don't have to wait 30 days.
Yeah, they could change
Just
like
decide
this.
to do it right now.
That's right.
Right now,
That's
I'm
right.
done with whatever it is. Or
That's
I'm
right. That's
bringing
it.
this into my life. Like, you don't have to wait 30 days to solidify. Just decide.
Can I say one thing?
Of course you can.
That's amazing, because it took me 7 years to decide to stop drinking, but I did
Mm-hmm.
it one day. Although it was 7 years, I decided in one day
Yeah.
to that point.
7 years of pre-work,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
led up to,
The pain was so great, change was a must, not a should,
right?
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're basically saying to people.
Mm-hmm.
It really depends on how bad you want it.
Yeah, and the power of the power of choice, and maybe even more than the power of choice, the power of deciding. You know, I believe that when we decide something, when we decide what we want, when we decide what we're no longer going to tolerate, we've all been on like a nature hike where there's like a big, beautiful river, and then there is like a rock in the middle of that river. And when we decide, when we stand firm in that decision, all of the energy of the universe flows around us.
Dropping
when
nuggets.
we make that choice.
Yeah.
The river isn't like, hey, rock, you know, I'm gonna move you. I might wear you down over time. The water just goes around it. And when we are so clear about a decision we're making, a choice that we want to make in our lives, the energy of the universe, of God, depending on, you know, your belief system, it respects that.
Yeah,
And it flows around you.
Dr. Taryn Marie is dropping bombs. And by the way, the Latin root of decision or decide is to cut off.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Now you got that.
Wow.
It's over now.
Go you with the Latin.
Let me tell you something. That's the only word I studied in high school. That and town, a father of pedo. That's how I knew a pedo meant town in Latin. Anyway, long story. But yeah, to cut off. Decide means to cut off. Tony Robbins talks about you wanted to burn the boats to take over the island. So to cut off, you know, the boat, you had to burn the boats. You have to go in and take over the island so they can survive.
Yeah, that's right. Like a Spanish conquistador did that, I think. I think that's where that comes from. Is I forget who it was, but you know, one of the
They burnt the boat?
They burned the boats.
They burned the boats.
Yeah, he didn't tell his men, but they pulled up on the shore.
And then they burnt the boats.
And he turned around and they burned the boats. And he's like, hey,
we should burn the boats. Everybody should burn the boats. If, for whatever goals you have, whatever outcomes, burn the boats. This is phenomenal. But we got to go back, though.
Gotta go back.
I want to know how this ended.
Yeah, it's interesting. Isn't the word ending interesting? You know, because we're still here talking about it today. So in a way, the story.
She's so good. Can we do like a 30-second rewind? Okay. Dr. Taryn.
Yes.
Can we go back and see the next phase of that journey?
Sure.
If you don't mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, because in a way, the story never ends. It keeps going. We're still having this. The story still goes, right?
Yes.
We're still having this conversation.
Pertaining to the assailant.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. We're still talking about him. He's still part of the story, right?
Yeah.
He's just showing up as a sort of a bit of a different character. I mean, he's still the same character, but he plays a different role in my life.
Yes.
Now than he used to.
You've minimized his impact.
Yes.
I would assume.
Yes, and this is gonna be interesting. So I'll tell you what happened, and I'll tell you how I think about him.
Is he the rock in the river or no?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, the rock and the river is me.
Okay, great.
The rock and the river is me. You know, and I think it's you, and I think it's anyone. The rock and the river is anyone who makes a decision.
So the river's just taking him somewhere. Over the waterfall.
I think you took the metaphor too far.
Okay. I do that.
That's all right.
I do that all the
Yeah.
time.
So Boulder. Let's go with Boulder, because Boulder's more unmovable, immutable.
Fair enough.
So the rock and the river is us.
Yep.
When we decide.
Cut off.
When we cut off. Right?
What we're not going to accept anymore.
What we're not going to accept anymore.
Yep.
Right? So to give a relatively present example of that, right? Toward the end of last year, this time last year, actually, I just did a social post on this.
Wow.
The relationship that I was in had been verbally and psychologically abusive. And then it turned into being physically abusive, right? There was a line that was crossed where I was like struck and pushed, and I was like, oh no, right? And in that moment, when that happened, I made a decision. A decision in the way that, you know, psychological unsafety, you know.
Physical.
Well, the physical hadn't happened yet.
Okay, got it.
But the feeling of being psychologically unsafe and the, like, you know, sort of abusive way that this person was showing up verbally and psychologically, it hadn't pushed me to cross that threshold of cutting off, to your point.
Yep.
But when that happened, it was like, no.
That was it.
Right? And that's when I made the decision that, like, I wasn't going to stay in this relationship. And then the next, you know, kind of, you know, series of steps in that story was me determining, okay, now how am I going to
Exit stage left.
Yes.
Got it.
Exactly. So when we make a decision
To cut off.
to cut off or to cut in or whatever it is, to stand in our power and to do something different.
To turn a should into a must.
Exactly. Yes.
Am I hitting singles?
I like it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good.
Boss the mic. I put on the show a little bit. Go ahead.
We love this.
I'm ready.
And so that's the rock in the river. It's the decision
Yes.
to stand powerful and staunch in our decision. And
Have
then,
the courage of your own conviction.
yes.
Got
and
it.
then everything else flows around us. And I use the river as an
I like
example
that.
because we can see the water flowing around the rock, whereas like energetically, it's sometimes hard to see that.
No,
energy.
great visual.
But
No one can see energy. I get that.
Yeah, we stand in a new way.
Love
so then,
that.
Thank you.
It's got to be a big rock too, though,
It's got to be a big rock.
because erosion will kick in after 200-300 years, right? We want to make sure it's not going to move for a long time.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And like a really durable, rock, like whatever that would be.
The Rock of Gibraltar,
Precisely.
whatever that is.
Whatever it is.
Yeah,
Yes.
let's go.
Yes, we'll Google that.
An
later.
asteroid.
An asteroid.
No,
No.
because that's flowing, and it crashes. We don't want that.
Okay.
We just
Yeah.
got to find the right rock for this, because I like the I like the water as the
Yeah.
it's landing for me.
Good. Good. So you can
But that
see it.
might not mean anything for them. Like if I understand it, I don't know if they're going to understand it.
Yeah, because I think we a lot of times we feel like maybe here's another example from the natural world, like a willow tree, and it's like the wind blows.
I just got
and we're,
lost.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the rock.
Okay.
I'll stay in the rock.
All right. Good.
All right.
Yes. So the rock is steadfast.
Got it.
Yeah. So, so going back, okay, so this guy comes more times, and I end up going off to college, off to University of Michigan,
Which was how far away?
like 5 minutes by car. Yeah. Yeah. But I'm in a fundamentally new environment.
Different spot.
I'm staying on campus.
But he's out there, right?
I know he's out there.
Yeah.
But as soon as I get on campus, I'm staying in like a dorm
Yeah.
with like hundreds of kids. I'm up
Okay.
on like the 6th or 7th floor. Like this guy's not finding me.
Can't get to the picture. Can't
Yeah.
at least look through a window.
Yeah. And I wanted to go to Brown. I got in, but my
Congrats.
parents could not afford, the tuition. And so I went to Michigan.
Yep.
And so, yeah, so I feel good on campus. And so my mom calls me like, I don't know, maybe like a year in, and she calls at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and I've got all these roommates, so I'm picking up the phone and I'm taking it out in the hall, like the cords, following me out.
I remember.
And she's like, hey, they've arrested this neighbor who lives 4 houses away for brutally raping another woman in our neighborhood.
I don't know he did that part.
And we think this might be the same person who was coming, to the house, to your window all this time. So we never definitively proved that. But he was tried for this crime, the rape of this woman, and he was sentenced to 20 years.
Was she the same age as you?
She was a bit older. She was
How
a bit
old was
older.
he when you were 14? How old was he?
He was 8 years, there's an 8-year
Eight-year gap.
age
Got it.
difference. Yeah,
Okay.
so he would have been 22
Got it.
when I was 14.
Understood. Sick puppy. Go ahead.
So
Yep.
he was sentenced to 20 years in prison.
Okay.
20 years in prison.
He was
And
proven guilty, clearly. Yeah.
for this crime
Yeah.
of this woman. And so, the way that I tell this story is, and I too spent time in captivity
Yes.
because I had developed post-traumatic stress disorder at the diagnosable level. So now I'm dealing with hypervigilance, which is like feeling anxious about my surroundings.
This was afterwards or the whole time? This was after you found that out?
I don't know exactly.
Or was it always present?
I don't know exactly when it developed. This is a really interesting thing for anyone who's listening or sort of interested in this these ideas. So he started coming to my window when I was 14. And so I'm not an adult yet.
Yeah.
I'm coming into my own as a woman, as an adolescent, like growing into adulthood. And I didn't yet know about the DSM-5 and diagnosable conditions and what particular symptoms you would need to have to meet the diagnostic criteria for something.
Yep.
So in my first or second or third, psychology class at the University of Michigan, we're starting to learn these diagnoses. And I'm like, wait a second.
So you're learning that as you're going through this. Got it.
So in my early 20s, I realized in psychology class that I meet the diagnostic criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder.
Got it.
Now, when exactly that happened,
Didn't matter.
And that went on for 2 decades for me.
Wow.
As well. So into my mid-30s until those symptoms were resolved to be below the diagnosable level, meaning I didn't have so many, and so I no longer meet the diagnostic criteria. Do I still have some of the symptoms? Sure.
Yeah, but you did a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember actually seeing who this person was for the neighborhood?
No.
Like just when you were little in general?
No.
Okay, so that's much of a secret kind of guy. Wow.
I think him being so much older,
Yeah.
I was playing with kids my age. Even 1 or 2 years is a big
It
age
is.
difference when you're
At
younger.
that age.
8 years, 14 to 22,
Yeah.
you're just in completely different circles,
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
So when you graduated college, what happened? Where'd you go next?
I took 2 years off.
Okay.
Yeah.
After you found that information out, or just?
No, it had nothing to do with that.
Okay.
Actually. So I thought that I wanted to become a clinician, that I wanted to be a psychologist, and that I wanted to work with people and help people in their most difficult times. And then, so it's fall of our senior year of college, and I'm thinking to myself at age, I guess I'm like 21, this is a really beautiful time. Right? Like there's this word I love, it's called like halcyon, like halcyon moments. It means like, these sort of like the gilded age of life, these beautiful golden moments that are just like not going to come back. Maybe it's your high school prom, maybe it's time playing in the summers as a kid at summer camp. And I just remember looking around my senior year and I was like, I'm never going to have another senior year.
Yeah.
I want to, squeeze all the juice out of this, so to speak.
Soak it in. Yep.
And so I saw my friends that were applying to graduate school, medical school, dental school, law school. They were taking their standardized tests. They were writing their applications, all while we're also in class, for our senior year. And I thought, I just don't want to invest time right now in these really special moments.
You just want to have fun. You just want to enjoy where you're at.
I want to enjoy
present.
where I'm at. And and this is like another sort of way that maybe my brain works differently from other people. I was projecting forward and I was like, okay, so if I'm applying for graduate programs now, I'm doing all this work, and then I get accepted, and then I've got the summer, and then I'm going to start school again.
Yep.
And I just saw so many of my friends sort of getting on this like high-speed train.
Conditioned.
That was going to take them to their law degree, take
Yep.
them to their medical degree, and then you get out, and then it's residency, then
Yep.
it's interning at the
Doesn't
law
stop.
firm, and it just keeps going.
Yeah.
I was like, I really do believe
That's a good point.
that I want to be a psychologist, that I want to be a clinician, and there's like a lot of other things I want to try before I get on that bullet train to my future.
Plus, you wanted to travel. You made lists, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you wanted to go see the pyramids. You wanted to go with the whales. You wanted to go to Costa Rica. Wherever else we talked about.
All the things.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I decided that I would take 2 years and I would, to the best of my ability, try to do as many of the things that I was super interested in.
Amazing.
And if at the end of that 2 years I still wanted to go to graduate school, I would apply and go.
Is that what happened?
That's what happened.
So you just did what you wanted.
Yes.
And did that 2 years experience, it's almost like when you hear about the Mormons when we're in Utah that they go on the 2 years and they serve the mission. Not that you were serving that, but that life experience changes everything. Did that change a lot for you?
It changed everything.
Yeah.
It changed everything. Because now I know people, I'm in my 40s, you're in your 50s. We all, what? 50
No one knows.
50 is the new 20.
Everyone thinks I'm like 35.
That's so true.
Now they think I'm 50.
But now they're going to want to know like what supplements you're taking, what vitamins. You're going to have like a whole nother vertical to your business here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. That was good. That was good. That was good.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice
She's going to be
recovery.
collaborative on it. Go ahead.
So we all know people who are like, yeah, it's great that I'm this successful, physician, but I always wanted to be a race car driver, or something like that, or try out for the NFL or whatever it is, you know, and whether you make it or not, and it becomes your career or your life, or it doesn't, like, at least you had the experience.
Yes.
At least
and it is about experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is.
So one of the things, that's been really important for me is, and I've sort of like developed this framework over time, is to say, success, that's an answer, that's feedback from life.
Yep.
Failure,
Yep.
that's also an answer, feedback from life. But not trying, that's a lifetime of not knowing.
That's not good. Yeah, I agree.
So I wanted to try it all.
Yeah.
So I did. So I got certified in scuba diving. I thought I might want to be like a scuba instructor. I worked as a model for a period of time. I was interested in like runway and print work. I was also interested in like the buying part of fashion.
No, are you still in the Midwest at this point?
I'm still in the Midwest.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it. All right. When did you get to the East Coast? Or was that like more into when did you leave?
When did I finally leave Ann Arbor?
Yeah,
I finally left Ann Arbor 2 years after I graduated.
after your 2-year hiatus. Got it.
Yeah, so I graduated in '01, and then I moved to Washington, D.C.
Why D.C.?
in '03. That's where I got into school,
Okay. What school did you go to?
University of Maryland,
Wow. What year did you graduate?
2008.
Did you follow any sports there at the time? I think Maryland basketball was really good.
Maryland basketball was really big then.
Yeah, they won.
really, really
they won
big
the
then.
championship.
Yeah.
In one of those years.
Yep. So I was
Steve Blake.
So I was there 2003 to 2008, and I got my doctorate degree in '08.
Did you like D.C.?
I love DC.
My nephew went to college, Catholic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
amazing. There is like such an incredible like density of amazing universities. There's like
Yeah.
Catholic and American
Yeah.
and George Washington and George Mason and
And the
University
city
of Maryland.
itself is beautiful.
It is
So
beautiful.
clean.
It's so clean.
Really,
so
it's
clean,
amazing.
So beautiful.
I've never seen a city that clean in my life. And did you stay there for how long did you stay there before you moved to Philly or Philadelphia? Or you live in Philly, right?
I do.
So what was the time gap?
Yeah. So I was there. So I was there '03 to '07.
Yep.
I went on fellowship in Richmond, Virginia, '07 to
Okay.
'09. Then I moved to Indianapolis.
Wow. Did you like that?
Indianapolis, it's a great
It's
city.
not Michigan, but it's not.
Yeah. I didn't need to go back to the Midwest
Yeah.
necessarily, but Indianapolis is like, it's much more metropolitan than Ann
Yeah.
Arbor,
Yep.
you know? So I was there for 5 years. Then we moved to,
Now, is this when you started a family or
yes.
in the middle
Yeah,
of
both of my
all
sons
this?
were born in Indiana, in
Got it.
Indianapolis.
Okay.
And side note, because I know you're a Celtics fan
I am.
and a Larry Bird fan.
I am.
So my older son, Samson, wants to be in the
just
NBA.
had a big game this weekend.
Yes.
5'8", 11-year-old.
Yes. So he wants to be in the NBA, and he decided.
I have an AAU program, Samson.
I
Epic
love
Elite.
it. We're bringing him.
Check it.
Check it. So he tells me, he's like, Larry Bird is my favorite basketball. Yes,
that
of
doesn't
all
make
time.
sense.
He loves Larry Bird.
Amazing.
He loves Larry Bird.
He's a smart kid. Let me tell
Right?
you something. He
I
understands
know.
teamwork and sacrifice and discipline at a whole
Yeah.
different level.
So, but I also, I was also thinking like, oh, well, there's so many incredible athletes in the NBA today and over time that are black. And so maybe he's just sort of gravitated toward Larry Bird because Larry Bird's white,
Yep.
right? And when we see someone who looks like us doing what we want to do, then it's like, okay, if we see it, we can be it.
Yes.
So I said, oh, Samson. I said, well, is Larry Bird your favorite player, like, because he's white? And Samson says, no, Mom. He goes, Larry Bird is my favorite player because we were both born in Indiana and we were both born on the same day.
There, see, you assume something.
This kid did his homework.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was born in French Lick, Indiana.
The hick from French
The
Lick.
Hick. Oh, you know Larry Bird. All right. Did you know that, Mike? Yeah, yeah. The Hick from French Lick. Yeah.
Yep.
So amazing. And Indianapolis, you started your family. And then you eventually moved.
Hartford, Connecticut.
Really? Wow.
New England. Now here's a fun fact because I know you're
Wow.
a sports guy.
I am.
Right? So I was in Richmond, Virginia, so we moved to Indianapolis. And we moved there, so this is '09 now.
Yep.
So football team, Indianapolis Colts.
Yep.
They are great. Peyton Manning.
I'm a Steeler fan of football.
Okay.
And we beat you guys in the playoffs and won the Super Bowl that year.
Okay.
Not you guys, but
Right.
that year we won in Indianapolis as a wild card.
But then in 2012,
Yes.
Colts win the Super Bowl.
Yes.
Right? Then we move to New England. What happens? The Patriots win the Super Bowl multiple times.
Yes.
Then We moved to Philadelphia,
So when are you going to move to Pittsburgh?
right?
You have to move to Pittsburgh.
We moved to Philadelphia in 2017.
Yep.
What happens in
They
18?
won the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So
against New England, against the Patriots.
That's right. Well, because we were no longer living there, clearly.
See, Mike, you couldn't help. You couldn't. There's nothing you could do.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I'm not saying, Rob, that I'm responsible for all of these Super Bowl winnings.
But you're not.
I'm just not saying I'm not responsible.
Yeah, you're not.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. So, you had a great TED Talk experience. You had, obviously your book and your life experience is incredible. What made you decide that you wanted to be a beacon of hope to people and share your story? Because it's amazing to me, honestly.
Thank you. I love that question.
Yeah, because people don't just show up. It just doesn't, you represent a message of hope in a way that some people may not know that it could even exist.
Yeah. Well,
Even in dark moments.
that's
the best time, right? Because that's when the light comes up, right? It's the darkest moment if you come across the right people.
That's so true. So my experience growing up, I think we talked about the times that this person came to my window or showed up. It was always dark.
Yeah.
So literally or figuratively or metaphorically,
Yeah.
I'm in the darkness. I'm home by myself. I'm alone in my room, and this person shows up. And that part's my story. That's sort of my unique story.
Yep.
The universal element of that, what we all have in common collectively, is we've all been in that dark moment, alone in our house.
That's right.
Alone in our cars, alone in our kitchen, alone in our bedroom.
That's right.
And something comes, again, metaphorically,
You're right.
to our front door, and now life as we know it is changing in that moment, in a significant way, or over time it's going to change in a significant way, and we don't yet realize it.
Yeah.
And in my experience, I felt profoundly alone in dealing with this trauma. And the trauma and the challenge and the complexity and all that stuff, that feels crappy enough.
Yeah.
And then the isolating nature of what that means for us when we face these things. And I thought, okay, like we said, challenge isn't going away.
This isn't normal, what you're seeing right here.
Thank you.
I'm serious.
Thank you.
This is incredible.
Thank you. So challenge isn't going away, but can we learn to deal with it in a better way? Can we find a roadmap to get through these moments? Just when we're saying to ourselves, I don't know what I'm going to do. What if we did know what to do? What if we had a blueprint
Love it.
for what we're supposed to do next? And
I have so many questions. Keep going. No, because this is good.
And even if we didn't have people in our lives to lean on, to lean into,
Yeah.
that there would be something that we could press into that would help us navigate our most unbalancing, our most confusing, our most scary moments. And I thought, you know what? I don't want anyone else to be alone in their own darkness by themselves. And so this is a thing that I can figure out, a framework, a roadmap, a blueprint that I think I can develop so that we all have the ability to move through these moments of challenge with more grace, more ease, more agility, more certainty than, what we would have without this framework.
Question. Let's call the framework hello to yes, just for this conversation.
Hello to
yes.
Okay.
What
all
was
right.
the time frame of the thought to reality of what you just described?
In terms of developing the framework?
Yeah.
20 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And when did you decide that you were going to take that to the world and then accelerate that?
I think I always knew that I was going to take it to the world. My first year of graduate school, which was 2003, so it's 20 years this year.
Wow. So you knew.
I knew.
Okay.
Yeah. The first article I ever wrote, because as a doctoral student, you're a researcher, so
Yeah.
they want you to publish. So the first article that I ever wrote
Yeah.
was on, and this is in my book, it's on women that were heads of households where there was financial insecurity and or food insecurity.
It's my mom. Yeah.
In rural Maryland, because this is a specific population. It's not an urban population where you have access to, transportation, city transportation, like,
Got it.
you know, so the rural, you know, it's a special group of people. And so we did interviews with people, I think for like 3 years in a row. And then we went and analyzed those interviews and how their life had changed.
Amazing.
And so the title of the very first article that I published is called Hidden Hurdles to Resiliency.
Wow.
And what were the things that were happening in these women's lives that you might not think would promote resilience but does? Or what are the things that are showing up in these women's lives that you think, oh, this is going to help them, but it actually doesn't?
Yeah.
You know? And so
Can you give me one thing like that?
Yeah.
Because we always whatever I think is never true, right? Could you? Because that's an important thing. Because
Yeah.
remember, folks, resilience isn't a bad thing; it's a beautiful thing, and it helps elevate. So let's make sure the energetic transfer. What's the word I'm looking for? Transportation of that word is uplifting, not about, oh my God, I don't want to hear about resilience. But go ahead.
thank you for that. Yeah. So what we found is that some things were like a double-sided coin or like a double-edged sword for people.
Understood.
So I'll give you two examples.
Unknowingly, though,
Unknowingly.
until the research. Got it.
So I'll give you two examples. So the first one is we often think of social support, you know, connections in our community as being something that's going to promote resilience, is going to help us.
Yep.
And for some women, that was true. But for other women, they said, I try to keep my circle small because when we have a big community of people around us, it's just more mouths to feed.
Okay.
It's more people asking us for money. It's more people asking us for it's more taxing on our family to have all these relationships than if we just kept it small.
Got it.
Right?
And you didn't know that.
Second one was, you know, you think in a rural area that, you know, having access to your own transportation is going to amplify resilience. So on the one hand, when a family could save up and buy a car, it did make a difference for them financially in terms of being able to like get a job or be more mobile and that kind of thing.
Yep.
But for other people, it was a real point of stress because they didn't realize like how the public assistance system worked.
Got it.
And they were afraid that if they were found to have a car, that they would lose their public assistance.
We can go into scarcity mindset on that all day long. That's another conversation. So, first of all, thank you. This has been unbelievable for me. I could talk to you for the next 10 hours.
Thank you. It's
Obviously.
been such an honor to be here with you.
But I was told to ask about Tom Brady. So, before we close, I want to ask about Tom Brady. We know he's the GOAT.
We know he's the GOAT.
We know you gave him and cost him a championship because when you went to New England, they won. When you went to Philly, they lost.
I'm not saying I'm responsible.
I think you are.
I'm not saying I'm responsible.
I get
though.
it. Not that you not caused them one either. But it did turn out you guys were at Michigan at the same time.
We were at Michigan at the same time. So,
And he wasn't like the primary starter either back at first.
yeah,
He was behind 3 quarterbacks from what I remember.
Yeah.
At one point.
Yeah, this is a great story of perseverance and resilience.
Resilience.
Yes, because
Yes.
a lot of people don't realize that. You know, our first string quarterback at that time was this
Legend.
man or young man by the name of Scott Dreisbach. Is that who you were thinking of?
No.
Who are you
It was
thinking
the other
of?
one. It was the one after him. The one that was like a Michigan, the state of Michigan. Because remember, Brady came from the West Coast.
Yeah.
But there was a guy that was before Brady that eventually Brady was able to beat him out.
Okay.
I forget his name.
Okay.
I'll find out later.
All right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He was like a 3-sport athlete in high school.
Okay.
Really, really good.
All right. Yeah.
You would know the name once I said it.
Okay.
I'm pretty confident.
Got it. So no one really knew who Tom Brady was, right?
But you mentioned something about your dad.
Right. So my dad was the head of the FBI in Ann Arbor, and my dad also played college football at the University of Nebraska.
Oh.
So through, Ann Arbor is a small town.
Yep.
And so through, different networks and things, my dad and Bo Schembechler,
Yep.
for those of you who don't know who Bo Schembechler is, he was the coach of the University of Michigan football team for a period of time. They got to be friends.
Wow.
And Bo said, my dad's name is Greg, and Bo said, Greg, I'm really concerned. This is my version. This is what I think happened. He said, I'm really concerned about these players and taking bribes and the NCAA, kind of standards. And I want to make sure we've got eligibility. And, I don't want kids getting into trouble, on my team. So he asked my dad to come and talk to the team from the perspective of having been a college football player
Yep.
and also now the head of the FBI.
Yep.
in
And
Ann Arbor.
gambling with athletes in college.
Yes.
That were getting paid.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That happened in basketball. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So my dad spoke to the football team. Bo and the team liked it so much
Yep.
that he came back every year.
amazing.
I don't know how long. Like Lloyd Carr took over. He was still doing it with Lloyd Carr.
Wow.
You know, I think Carr was my era. Carr was probably the coach when I was.
Bo wasn't the coach when, yeah. Yep.
So my dad just kept going. So my last name, Stayskull, with a J, it's Eastern European. It's, you know, it's not a common last name.
Where they're from?
The
Originally?
Czech Republic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what happened was I got to campus my freshman year.
Yep.
My dad's been talking to the football team for years,
Yep.
Special Agent Stayskull, and he started talking to the basketball team, to your point.
Yep.
And so as soon as you show up on campus, people want to know your name and they want to know where you're from.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of a sudden I'm telling kids, oh yeah, I'm Taryn Marie Stayskull. I grew up in Ann Arbor. And the athletes are like, hold on.
Your dad.
Is Greg your dad?
Yeah.
And I was like, yes. And from that moment
You
on,
became a celeb?
I would say with any athlete on the football, basketball team, maybe some other, there was like a 6-foot force field.
You didn't have to wait on lines to get into any parties, right? There was no line. You weren't waiting on the lines. I got it. I understand.
More so like there was a force field. Like those athletes were like, that's the FBI agent's daughter. We're not going anywhere near her.
So did you meet Tom?
I did.
And
Yeah.
how was that version of him?
Great.
Yeah?
Yeah, he was a great guy. I studied with those guys at their study table
Were you in any classes with him or
many
anything?
times.
Did he ask you to lunch?
I think he asked me to study. He asked me to study.
Did he?
One time with him. I didn't go.
Yo, she said no to Tom Brady.
Mm.
You heard it here first. Mike. Wow. She said no to Tom Brady. What did you say? What was your excuse?
Well, you know, he was just asking me to study.
I understand.
You know, it was no,
So
MBD, no big deal. Yeah.
That wasn't a strong move. Not for nothing. He probably could have came with a better move. But tell me what happened. Like, what did you say? You had to go. Where were you going? What was your story?
I think I just told him like I wasn't available. I didn't feel like I had to explain.
Were you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you not available, or were you waiting to see? Were you testing them, or were you just not available?
I think I just how to say.
Good question.
How to say.
It wasn't the right time.
It wasn't the right time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was focused on my academics. I was focused on my studies. And, you know, this is a gross overgeneralization and stereotype.
We're just having fun.
Right. You know, like athletes have a certain persona
Understood.
on campus.
Yep.
And I just didn't want to be that girl
You ran in the other direction.
who thought that I had one thing, but the situation was another thing.
Understood.
And so I thought, you know what, just better with Dad talking to the team every year to just keep things copacetic and just to be friends with these guys.
Man, you were forward thinking in a lot of things you did. That was amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And your college experience.
They
was
were
it-
great guys.
Of course. Did you enjoy your college experience?
I loved it.
Yeah?
I loved everything about college.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, Dr. Taryn, tell everybody where they can find you. Tell everybody what you bring to the table, all the courses, everything else. Highly recommended. Very interested myself.
Thank you.
And want to learn more. I want to get this blueprint map in my world. Because my
you so
last
much.
question is, and this is important, when we have maps like this, right? How do I ask this question? How do you teach somebody that they don't have to stay in the pain too long to go to that map?
Yeah, it's a great.
Right? You give me the map right now.
Yeah.
Right? I have the map. And we trained for 6 months. Right? All of a sudden over here, some things pop off.
Yeah.
How long, like, what is the, I don't know if there's an answer, but how long do I stay stuck in that before I say, let me just go to this map and turn it over to the map, turn it over to my higher power, right?
Yeah.
Which is speaking to me through this map,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think the great thing is a couple things about that. We don't have to make a choice. So going to the map doesn't mean you've stopped feeling. It doesn't mean you stopped experiencing. It doesn't mean things don't still feel hard or confusing or uncertain. It means that you have a series of steps and strategies to help you walk with that pain, with that difficulty. So it's not like an or, it's more of an and.
And then. I love it.
And a big part of this is really recognizing, like being present with what's happening and with the lessons that are coming to us in the moment. You know, I told you I would tell you how I think about the stalker now. That stalker is one of my greatest teachers.
Yes, I understand that.
Because I've learned about my own strength.
Yeah.
I've learned about my own fortitude. I've learned about my own tenacity,
Yeah.
my will to get better and to keep going, and how quickly I can think in moments to keep myself and others safe.
Yeah.
And so many other things.
Yeah.
And so it's not about sort of spiritually bypassing the pain or toxic positivity or, you know, but it's having a series of steps just when we say, I don't know what to do next,
Yeah.
to know what to do next.
Just
and
the
what's
next
gonna
step.
make a difference. Yeah.
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 That's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for this gift to the world. And
Thank you
for
so
coming
much.
to Red Bank. I'm
Thank you for
super
having me.
honored.
I'm super honored too.
Excited for this to get out there and for
Me
the people
too.
to hear it.
Thank you.
I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
It's been such a great honor to be with you.
You too.
Thank you so much.
Mike, thank you, Boston Mike. So folks, thank you so much for checking out the video. Always hit that subscribe button. But and listen, I've done a lot of these. You can check out all the videos I've done. Dr. Taryn Marie, by far and away, and I've never said this before, has been the best interview that I've ever had. You can check it out. You won't hear me say that about anybody else. And I am honored to be able to spend the time, not only with her, but also go check her out. Go check out what she's got going on, because if there's trauma in your life, and if you have any kind of map to overcome whatever these traumas are, these can become your greatest gifts instead of your greatest albatrosses. Anyway, thanks for checking me out and continue to follow.